here. And I am going to just change this so that I can see who's here.
So, as everybody knows, I am recording, and you are welcome to watch this or make reference to it. Basically, it's where the instructor is, and you can go and just scroll down, and the recordings are there by the instructor's class. You have to click join the class, and you go into where the bio is and all that, just for you guys to know. So now I'm gonna be quiet.
Hi Penny. Also, I don't know if there's anybody else here. I don't see other people, but I'm just going to go ahead. So just in the same way that I did last week, I'd like you guys to have a pen and paper out ready to go, and I'm going to have you do this exercise to get started today, and it's describe how to do something. Oh, hang on a second. I need to pull this up, like slideshow kind of viewing. There we go. Now you don't have to look at all the pictures on my screen, which are just the things that I pulled off the internet to put on the thing. So here's your exercise to get started. The next one, please. There we go. So describe how to do something for 2 minutes without stopping. It doesn't have to be an earth-shattering thing. Like it could just be making a bed, scooping kitty litter, shooting a rat, but write it down as if you're simply telling it to another person. So I want to kind of hear the way that you would speak to another person. So when I speak, my voice has some unique tics that belong to me because I'm an Australian, and so some stuff jumps into my language that maybe doesn't jump into other people's language. So I might say something like a little bit of this or a spot of that, and those kind of things are distinctive to my voice, and there'll be things that are distinctive to your voice as well. And I really just want you to kind of spend the 2 minutes from the time I say go, just writing down how to do something. So notice the difference here where I say, so I got up this morning and it was freaking hot. I mean, the fan wasn't working, rather than when I arose this morning, it was exceptionally hot because the fan was broken, right? So there's a difference. One's like a more high kind of level of diction, and the other one's a lower level of diction. One's, you know, more colloquial. And unless you actually speak like the second one, I want you to go for the first one. So ready? Are your pens out? Hey, hello, Rafal. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm well, thank God. I'm happy to see your face. And away you go, guys. So you've got 2 minutes. Pen on the paper, do not take it off. Describe something, but use your own voice to do so. Describe how to do something.
Describing something, it doesn't matter?
It doesn't matter, it just has to be something, how to do something. So like how to make your bed, how to scoop the kitty litter.
How to drive a car. I'm a car technician, so.
Right? How to drive a car, how to dust the books. I don't know, whatever you want. All right. Hope you got something down because you're about to read it out. All right. So is anybody ready or prepared to just read their little bit? And I know 2 minutes is not a long time, right? It's just a short time. I really just want you to be able to kind of jumpstart yourself, get yourself going really fast. So anybody got something for us? Rafal?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay, great. Go.
To check the oil level in a car, you have to pop the bonnet with a latch that's normally located on the driver's side. Then you go around, open the bonnet, normally where the logo is, you have a latch, you push on it, then you can unlock the bonnet, then put the little thingy to hold the hood up in there, and then you find a small thing you can put your finger in, pull it out. You can take a little rag, a paper or something, remove the oil, put it back in, and then pull it back out. When it's between mini and maxim, that means that your level is correct, but you should not overfill it or underfill or have not enough oil of it. Then put it back in, close the, and you're done.
Okay, so what I love about this is it sounds just like you. That's your natural voice. That's what you actually sound like inside your own head.
And that's what I was trying to do.
Yes, and it's very effective. I listened to that. I was like, hey, I can hear Rafal talking. That's a great natural voice, Rafal. I love the little thingies. Like that was a very you thing to have in there, the little thingies. So that's great. Somebody else.
You can go. Oh, go, Brenda.
Okay, Sarah, go ahead.
Okay. So it's about this. Okay. I went to check up on the newly planted flower to see if it was thirsty. Walking over, I looked for yellow spots, noticing the edges of the blooms to see if they were dark and wrinkled. The plant looked like it needed some water, but knowing that it was early afternoon and the sun was still very, very hot, I decided to wait until later on.
Excellent. Okay. So would you say that that's how your voice sounds like to you inside your head? Is that how you would sort of think of your voice?
Yeah, I would say, I think so, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if that's how my voice sounds, but the things that I chose to notice are things that I know that I notice, so I tried to language it.
Yes. Yeah, good. That's fantastic, actually. That's just great. So this is a really great exercise for figuring out what your natural writerly voice could sound like instead of something sort of stiff. You know, like when I arose in the morning, it was exceptionally hot because the fan was broken, right? So your voice is more casual, like the little wrinkled edges of the flowers or whatever that was. That was great, right? Because that's more intimate. It's more personal. It feels like a real person talking instead of just a book talking. And I'm much more interested in listening to real. Brenda, you had your hand up before. Do you want to go next?
Sure. Lately I've been taking walks. Usually they're super fun. I play my tunes as I enjoy the scenery. I also have to wear my glasses and extra shirt to watch out for the sun. Speaking of the sun, it's been making it super hot lately, so hot lately that I have to come in because I'm getting exhausted easier.
Yes, excellent. Okay, so Brenda, I love that. I thought that you did a fantastic. Hang on a second. I need light on the subject. That was fantastic. And again, that natural tone, that quality of just kind of talking to somebody else is really effective. It's really pleasing to listen to. That's a tone that if you wrote a story in that voice, I'd read all of it. I'd be excited to read all of it because that's your voice. That's your storyteller voice. Penny or Raduca, you want to go next? What's that? Sorry.
Can I refill my water?
Yeah, go for it.
Thank you.
I'll go.
Go ahead, Penny.
Okay. I want to tell you about my morning. It was so freaking hard to get up in the pitch black. It was rain. It is raining cold in this midwinter morning. Filling the kettle firstly, staggering to the laundry where the only tap with a water filter on, I switched it to the filter. That's as far as I got.
Perfect. Okay, so again, just like with everybody else, when I ask you to just tell me a story in your own voice, it's great. It's absolutely great. So if you can somehow sidestep your wish to be a writer and to use that writerly voice, if you just tell me the story in your own language, all of a sudden I love it. I'm like, yes, this is really direct. This is really honest. This is perfect. Raduca, would you go next?
Yeah, sure. Am I on? Yeah. So I said, we have guests coming for dinner and it's their first visit to our house. So please make sure you have your bed, that you make your bed. And please do not say you won't. My friend knows I built this house, so they want to look around. If you need help, let me know. And it doesn't have to be perfect. I also think you should put away all those boxes in front of your door. There are new sheets in the closet by the bathroom and clean towels in the laundry room. If you are ambitious, you can mop and dust too. I'm using the mop now, but whatever. So then I'm done.
That's great. Okay, fantastic,
That's
right?
amazing.
So I think everybody gets a clap because seriously, it's great. That this is exactly what I'm hoping for when you write. I'm hoping for that kind of that direct voice where I hear a real human being talking. And real human beings talk in these kind of quirky and interesting and specific ways. So obviously the session this week is about voice. We're talking about the way voice is developed. So like what exactly is voice? And so people will tell you all this like, oh, this is what voice is and that's what voice is and stuff. But really there's two aspects of it. There's the author's voice, which is what we just heard from you guys. That's the author's voice. The author's style of writing, their particular quirks and flourishes, that's mostly just the way you hear yourself in your own head. And that often will come out in third person point of view. So the third person point of view is like he, she, it, he said, she said, right? So then that comes out from directly from the author's style of writing. And then the character's voice is the second thing, right? So you know that there's this divide between the author and the character. The character is not the author. The author is not the character, although the author kind of directs the character in the same way that, let's say you have a marionette on stage and there's a guy who's controlling the marionette up above, right? So the guy who's controlling the marionette up above, he could be controlling the marionette and eating a sandwich. But the marionette down below could be being, Othello in Shakespeare or something, right? Doing something completely different. So there, even though he has control, the author has control, the character is not the author and neither is the author the character. Although there is some, obviously you have control. So the attitude and background of the character as expressed through dialogue and narration. And that often comes out in first person point of view or just like speech. So when you're looking at it, sometimes it's really hard to tell a difference, right? The author's voice and the character's voice can have a big crossover. Actually, it's not a good thing. If I can hear the author speaking through their character, I'm like, oh no, that's not good. So what I really want to hear is I want to hear the character's voice when the character's speaking, the author's voice when the author is kind of doing their thing. So moving forward on that. So what does make a good voice? What makes a voice good? So I have like some things here, but what do you guys think? When you read a book, what makes you go, ooh, I love this? Sarah?
When there's when what makes something is when there's an object that is a common object or a plant, it doesn't matter, like something that it, and the writer or the author or the character, they describe it, they pick up a detail that I otherwise wouldn't have perceived, and they use language to animate it in a way that I normally wouldn't engage with it in that way.
Okay.
And so,
excellent. Yeah. So you like originality, and take a look on the bottom row there. See that word? Originality. You like it when there's something new for you there. Right? What else? What do you guys like when you read a book, Raduca?
I like well-defined characters, and then literally I don't have to, like, they automatically will have their own voice. There's something about, yeah, that's it. I don't know.
Yeah. Anybody else? Brenda, do you have some thoughts on like what makes a book really great for you? Like when you read a book, you're like, "Ooh, man, I love that."
When it's really funny and there are good fourth wall breaks.
Right. Okay. So really funny is part of the voice, right? So if the character is like kind of hilarious and says hilarious things, then we're like, "Oh yeah, man, I love that. That's so fun." Well, that's great. And the second part I missed because it kind of went in my computer. What was the second part of that, Brenda?
I also like when there are good fourth wall breaks.
When there's good, I can't hear it.
Fourth wall breaks.
Oh, fourth wall breaks. Yes. Okay. And again, that's part of voice, right? So that when the character turns and addresses the audience directly, that's very much as if you, the author, just kind of, or the character, turn and address your audience. And so that's also part of the voice, right? And so this idea that the way words are said matters just as much as the words themselves. What do you think that means?
It sets the tone.
It does set the tone. So part of last week we talked about the idea that, sorry, somebody left the door open in my house and it's full of flies. I have a fly zapper going, but there's still flies everywhere. So the way that the words are said matters just as much as the words themselves. So like I could say, "You're such a darling," right, to one of my kids. But if I said, "You're such a darling," it means something totally different, right? And that's true in the story as well. The attitude conveys a lot of energy in the story. And so if your character has an attitude, and we talked about this last week, if your character has feelings about things and those feelings come across in the work, that makes it much more interesting. That makes it a good voice, so to speak, pardon the pun. And if you like the person who's telling you the story, the character, then you'll generally let them tell you a story. So there's a book which we're going to take a look at in a second called Lolita, which is by Nabokov, and it's a problematic book for a variety of different reasons. But the narrator himself was crafted by Nabokov to be exceptionally likable, except for one small detail. And it's not such a small detail, but at any rate, except for that detail, he's crafted to be exceptionally likable. And so even though most people, when confronted with this particular story, would pop out of the story and say, "I don't want to hear that," because the character is so likable, deliberately so likable, we follow the story. And that's an interesting thing, right? So you may have heard before this idea that you have to like the narrator. You don't have to like the narrator, but there has to be some aspect of their character that intrigues you. So in that sense, then you'll follow them. And then this sentence here: sentence rhythms, word choices, pronunciation, syntax. Does everybody know what syntax means? Syntax is the order in which the words are placed in the sentence. So I could say, there was a cat in the house yesterday. That's one way of saying it. But I could also say, yesterday there was a cat in the house. Or I don't think I can flip that around too many more times, but like you can move it around. So that's syntactical choices. And as a writer, you try not to start each sentence the same way or have the same length sentences or kind of go noun, verb, adjective or something, you know, in those orders. You try to flip it around to make it more interesting for the reader. And that's all part of making the voice good. Right? And then last but not least, the strength of the voice, meaning a lot of times if I assign a piece of writing to you, and 5 minutes before class you go, oh no, I need to write that thing. The default will be almost a journalistic tone, like almost something that you could pull off the New York Times. It'll be a very kind of neutral, flat, I want to say, piece of writing. And in fiction, that's not considered a strong piece of writing. That's considered just a flat piece of writing. The strength of a piece of writing is kind of how energetic it is and how different it is from journalistic writing. And the originality, which is something that Sarah talked about, I think, meaning, you know, just how unique that is and how different that is. And then the attitude, which we talked about, which is like this kind of, how does the person feel about whatever's going on in their life? Right? So I'm going to move on. And this is a writer, Gary Provost's suggestion about how to fix the voice, so to speak, of your writing. And some of these things, the reason that I put this in here, okay, so this class is the first class that I crafted specifically for this group of writers. And so you'll see as it goes on, I'm going to have little snippets from your writing. And this is specifically because some of the writing that I saw has these issues. So it's not just a random stab in the dark on my part. This is actually for you guys. So would somebody read this out? Penny, do you want to do it?
Okay.
Thanks.
This sentence has 5 words. Here are 5 more words. 5-word sentences are fine, but several together becomes monotonous. Listen to what's happening. The writing is getting boring. The sound of it drones. It's like a stuck record. The ear demands some variety. Now listen. I vary the sentence length and I create music. Music. The writing sings. It has a pleasant rhythm, a lilt, a harmony. I use short sentences and I use sentences of medium length. And sometimes when I'm certain the reader is rested, I will engage him with a sentence of considerable length, a sentence that burns with energy and builds with all the impetus of a crescendo. The roll of the drums, the crash of the cymbals, the sounds that say, listen to this, it's important. So write with a combination of short, medium and long sentences. Create a sound that pleases the reader's ear. Don't just write words, write music.
So
That's
thank
good.
you. Thanks, Penny. Yeah. So that's really good, right? Because it's really easy to get stuck in a rut where you keep on using the same little short sentences over and over, or the same medium length sentences over and over. That's more usual. And they all kind of seem really similar. And that's not the way you talk. That little writing exercise that you did right in the beginning tells me right away, there is nobody in this class who talks in the same length sentences every single time. It just doesn't happen. So think about that as you write. Try and vary the sentence lengths. Try and vary the way that they're shaped. It is music. Speech is music. It's beautiful, and it changes, it varies, it flows, and try to get that into your writing. And the more you practice that, the better it'll be. Okay, so here we go. These are the first paragraphs from a bunch of different books. And I wanted you to think about what we had said back here. Let's go back for a second, so just to remind you. No, I went the wrong way. Previous. And previous again, please. And previous again. Here we go. So these things that make a voice good, right? So these are examples from books that are considered to be the world's best books. And I want you to think about what in the first paragraph kind of falls into these parameters of the way, the attitude of the words, the way they're said, if you like the character, the sentence rhythms, the word choices, pronunciation, syntax, pauses, whatever it is, strength, originality, and attitude. All those things are aspects of voice. And you can tell right away in these stories that the writer has it. They have it called. So here we go. I'll read the first one, and this is from Lolita, Nabokov's Lolita, the one that I was talking about before. And this is the very, very beginning paragraph of this very, very famous book, often considered one of the last century's best books. Lolita, light of my life, fire of my loins, sin of my soul. Lolita, the tip of the tongue taking a trip of 3 steps down the palate to tap at 3 on the teeth. So this is a very distinctive person talking, right? Would you say that it's he's a hippie?
I feel like that the person that they're talking about looks like a child. I am disturbed by this.
So who's talking right now? Because this is the main character in this book. Who's talking? Is he let's see, is he an uneducated cowboy?
He sounds, or at least someone with access to a thesaurus.
He's someone with access to a thesaurus. Excellent, Brenda. That is such a great comment. Yes, this is somebody. He's an educated man. He's interested in language. He plays with language. He's also a little over the top. We can assume, right? Lolita, light of my life, fire of my loins, right? Sin of my soul, right? So he's a little over the top. We already know in the first 2 sentences what that voice is going to be like for the rest of the whole book. Something about the character, it's wildly original, it's really different. And take a look at those sentences. Do those look like the sentences that you guys wrote in your stories? Sorry to be harassy here, but like the only way that you can change things is when you kind of look at them and you go, oh yeah, hey, I did write a bunch of really similar sentences, but these sentences look really different. Okay, and looking really different includes things like there's different kind of punctuation in there than I found in any of your work. So that's number 1. All right, so let's go to the next one. And would somebody read this? This is from Otessa Moshfegh, and she wrote this book, Eileen. And again, this won the shortlisted for the Man Booker Prize and a bunch of other prizes she did win. So somebody read that?
I can do it.
Thank you, Sarah.
I looked like a girl you'd expect to see on a city bus, reading some cloth-bound book from the library about plants or geography, perhaps with a net over my light brown hair.
Okay. So Sarah, what do you think you can tell from just from this little section here? Is she the same character or narrator, the same kind of person as the narrator in Nabokov's book?
No.
How would you describe the difference? Just from 2 sentences, right? Just from 2 sentences. This is how voice conveys intention.
The difference, well, I think there's a similarity in that they both describe one or 2 things. Like, well, okay, one thing, which is a human, like them, and this very much. So there's a similarity in that. The difference, I think, is in their perception of a human. The tone is different, just in how they choose to see what they're describing.
What kind of a person do you think Eileen is?
Down to earth.
An outdoors kind of person?
No,
yeah.
Introverted.
Introverted, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Do you think she's like full of herself, or do you think she's quite humble, or even kind of
down to earth, kind of?
Yeah.
Full of herself.
Yeah. So it and it's not exactly conveyed with the words, right? It doesn't say anywhere, I am a humble girl. It's conveyed with the the way she expresses herself. Maybe she would have a net over her light brown hair. The things that she focuses on are the things that like make her seem not full of herself. And so we get this sense of who she is as a person. And that's true here too, right? When we see Lolita, light of my life, fire of my loins, blah, blah, blah. We get this sense that the character is kind of full of himself and kind of a proud guy. And so the way you express the sentences that start your work and continue through it, the voice of your work, really conveys a lot more than just the words, right? It's more than just the words. Okay, so let's go to the next one so that you can really see like a range of things here. Brenda, I put this one in just for you. Would you read this one out loud?
In fairy tales, witches always wear silly black hats and black coats, and they ride on broomsticks. But this is not a fairy tale. This is about real witches.
Okay, so you said that so perfectly because you said it with a whole bunch of attitude, and clearly this narrator has attitude in spades, right? You hear, hey, there's a chip on the shoulder of the narrator. You can hear it, and it's great. Okay, so thank you, and I'm going to go to the next one. We have enough time to see everything. And then there's this one. So who would like to read this one?
I can read it again.
Yeah.
Somebody who didn't get a chance yet. Raduca, you?
Okay.
Thank you.
Deep in the basement of West Baltimore, Bill stood in his homeboy Marlon's basement holding the mic, I guess, like a lover. They called themselves the West Side Kings, which meant Marlon cutting break beats and Bill reciting battle rhymes. He had scrawled in a yellow notepad. I don't know if it took me.
Right, so there are words in there that we don't know, right? I don't know what break beats or battle rhymes are. I mean, I can guess maybe what battle rhymes are, but I might be guessing wrong. And so I'm not 100% sure. I think I know what a homeboy is, but I'm not 100% sure. So though the language takes me someplace, right? The character's voice tells me that I'm someplace else. I've moved to a different place and possibly, a different culture. And that's conveyed with two sentences. The two sentences right in the beginning. And that's what you're looking for, that kind of originality, that voice that really conveys strongly where you are, who the person is who's talking. So here we go. Next. I'm going to skip this and come back to it, okay? So, and go to this. So now, these are from your work. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to look and see what we know about the character based on these first sentences from your work. So I didn't put the name of the person. If the person wants to speak up and say, that is my work, they can do that. But if not, we're just going to do it in this way so it feels less intimidating. And remember, when we're talking about this, we are not talking about a novelist who lives in Yehubitzville, someplace really far away or has already died and isn't sitting in on this conversation. We are talking about the work of somebody who is sitting in this class with us. And so please remember the first day of class when I talked about the respect that we have for other people. Please remember to talk respectfully about your co-writer's work. And by respectfully, I mean notice the good, pause on saying the bad. Okay, so in this case, we have this practice voice. So this was from one of the writers, and it says, it was a blistering 40 degrees on the turquoise, I think I left out a word here, I apologize to the person, turquoise coastal settlement of Gray. The inland wind from the east had swung around from the southwest and was enough to drive someone to drink. Flies, dust, salt, and stinging sand. So this is a great voice. This is a really great voice. I'm very impressed with this piece of work because I feel the energy of the character as they're describing it. They're not happy with this situation with the flies, the dust, the salt, and the stinging sand. In the same way that last week we talked about the language kind of conveying the mood, here this person has done it very well. Blistering, the inland wind drives someone to drink, flies, dust, salt, and stinging sand. So these things all convey a certain energy to the story, and I get a good sense of the voice. Could the writer do more with it? What do you think? Don't be shy. We were talking about, let's go back. We were talking about the voice, right? So if it's coming from a particular person who's narrating the story, how could this writer increase the sense of voice? Not that there isn't voice, because I already have said that it was an excellent example of voice, but how could they increase it? What do you think, Brenda?
Maybe have the character say something like "I," like an "I" statement, as it like flies into my face or something like that.
Mm-hmm. That's possible, yeah. So these are all, remember that these are all just possibilities. The writer is ultimately the writer, and they get to decide what's going to happen in the story, right? So we can make suggestions, we can talk about their work, and we love their work, but ultimately they are the ones who make the decisions about what happens and what doesn't happen. So this is a practical exercise in what might happen. If you guys are ever in a writing workshop, this is exactly what happens. We talk about the work and we think about, well, maybe this could happen, maybe that could happen, okay? So anybody else, any other ideas? Okay, so I'm going to, as the teacher here, I'm going to give one example of something, and that's this. So when the character says, the inland wind from the east had swung around from the southwest and was enough to drive someone to drink, because it's not just someone in this story, it's a particular person. If I was editing this, I might change this to me, the word me, right? So it becomes more personal. The inland wind from the east had swung around from the southwest and was enough to drive me to drink, right? So then I make it more personal because I want to convey with my voice that this is a personal story. It's not just a general story, it's a personal story that happened to me. Does that make sense? Okay. Yeah. Was that too scary? I hope that wasn't too scary. You see, like, we make an analysis of the story, but it's a gentle analysis. We're not trying to like be cats and claw the story apart. We're just trying to say, you know, this is really good like it is, but you could try this other thing, right? Okay, so don't get scared. And if anybody really, 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 really doesn't want me to do it, I don't think there's a way to send me a private message.
No, they can use chat to give you a private message.
Okay, so I don't know if I can pull up chat while I have the screen sharing. Let's see if I can. Because I want to. Oh,
what about I'll let you know if there's a chat that you could need.
Okay, here's a chat. So I just pulled up my chat box. And can you guys see that? Hopefully not.
No.
Okay, so if anybody doesn't want me to use their story, and you will know if you sent me a story, if anybody doesn't want me to use their story, just send me a private message. So you do that by where it says to everyone, you can just click on that little triangle and instead just send it to me, Goldie, and then I will be the only one who sees it, okay? So I have that up for now. And I'm gonna go to the next story. Boop. And here we are. And I need to push this to the side though. And push this to the side. So here we are. Oh, that's actually kind of funny because that practice voice starts this way. So it says like this. Here we are again, in the room you have lived in for decades. I've come and gone, most often visiting to make sure you know where you are. So this is very intriguing. When I read that, I'm like, oh, so who is the you? Who is this you? I've come and gone, most often visiting to make sure you know where you are. Who is that
That's my-
you?
My
What's that?
fairy
Brenda?
talking.
What's that?
My fairy godmother talking.
Yeah, like I'm like, who is this you? That's cool. Like that gets me hooked in right away. And we're in a room. I don't know where the room is, right? A room that you've lived in for decades. Who's this you? I'm curious. So again, with the voice, are there things that you might try to tinker with? No cats. Soft pitty furs. Are there things that you might try with this? What do you think would help with the voice here? Help to engage the reader?
You would add, maybe add something about, like, how many years has it been?
How many years is it? Right, because that's like a direct speech. Like it's a question, it engages, and it's also direct speech. It's more personal, right? And always you're looking for the way to come across as real and personal. That's like the whole point of voice. You want to be a real character, a real person.
Maybe more description.
Mm-hmm. So again, this is just the first two sentences, but yeah, it's possible. Here we are again in the room. Maybe this room could have like a word or two of description about it, right? That's possible. Yeah. And what else might help with the voice? Even if the writer never does this, what could be something that if you were tinkering around with your own work, how might you try to kind of manipulate it to make it more personal?
Add a comment about what they look like maybe some comment like, wow, that eye of yours sure seems to be better than usual, or something like that.
So like, that's right, Brenda, but you can also like think about it this way. Direct address, because this is a direct address to a you. So one of the big classics that addresses somebody directly or addresses the reader directly is Moby Dick. Call me Ishmael. That's the very first sentence. Call me Ishmael. So there would be nothing wrong. And again, this writer is never going to change this. Like this is just for you thinking about how somebody might tinker with something. This writer could say, call me Goldie. And here we are again in this room you've lived in for decades, right? So that I know something about the character and there's this immediate connection because you've made that appeal in the same way that Brenda says she likes the breaking down that fourth wall. So yes, you make the direct appeal to the reader. And in this case, there's that you, which makes me kind of, I'm curious. And so you can massage that, make it more intense. I'm going to move to the next one. And here's another practice voice. So I actually changed this very, very slightly because I think it was set up as a kind of like a screenplay or a script of some kind, but then I just slightly changed the punctuation to make it so that it looks like a story. So the little boy screams and goes away, but then he comes back to the abandoned car. He asks the leaf monster what he is doing in there. So for myself, if I saw this on the front page of a book, just like that, because of the change in punctuation, and remember we talked about this when we were looking at Nabokov's first sentence, because of the change in punctuation right here, the little boy, and then, right, the colon, screams and goes away, you've got my attention right now. Because that voice is very unique, very original. I never saw that before, other than in a script. But this isn't a script. So you can see why I changed it slightly, because otherwise it would be a script and I'd be like, it's a script. But instead, I'm trying to show you that if this was a piece of fiction and I was looking at it, I'd go, whoa, that's really different. That caught my attention. That's voice. That's originality in voice. Anybody want to talk briefly about something that they think could be massaged here or changed in some way? And remembering always that the writer
really,
has done an excellent job here. All of your work is really great. This is great. Rafal, did you want to say something?
yeah, no, it's my work, so I don't really know what I should add to it.
Bravo. Right. So I want to put this idea out there that it's hard to offer suggestions about other people's work because you feel like, oh my gosh, they're going to take it wrong. They'll be hurt. They'll think I think something about it that I don't think about it. It's really weird to like make suggestions about people's work. But on the other hand, if you're a writer who's trying to improve their writing and trying to get better ideas, it's incredibly helpful. It's one of the kindest things that you can do to actually give them real information about their work, to tell them, hey, I didn't understand something about this, or I really would like to know more about this, or could you tell me something about this, right? Or it's feeling a little flat right here. That's super helpful. So even though it feels a little uncomfortable for you as the participant, usually the writers are like, bring it on, tell me more, I want to know. So you're doing a kindness rather than the opposite.
For this practice voice, I would have liked to have been introduced or had a allusion to the leaf monster before he shows up, or she or they show up in the third line. If something about the leaf monster appeared a little sooner on, maybe when the boy was screaming and going away.
Right. Okay. So that's actually a very valid thing to say, because the little boy screams and goes away. Well, I'm like, why did he scream? What did he go away from? Right. So Rafal did provide the information in the second sentence, but then he goes back to the abandoned car. He asks the leaf monster what he's doing in there. So this is one way actually of kind of changing up the syntax. Although it's not within the sentence, it's within the paragraph, it's slightly rearranged to kind of create some tension.
If you want to know, Sarah, I can tell you what comes before.
Yes, right. So, but at the same time, Sarah, you're exactly right, right? So two things can be right. It can be right that it's really interesting this way, and it can also be right that for some readers, they're going to want to know that there is a leaf monster to begin with, right? So both of those things are correct. As far as the voice goes, what else? What else could we say here? Any thought?
I have a question about it. So the little boy screams and goes away, and then in the last sentence where he asks the leaf monster, would in this situation where he asked, would it actually be a question that the boy would say with quotation marks, like in the little boy's voice, or would it be a description of what he has said?
Right. So that again is always the author's choice. The author gets to choose that. It could be like this, which is called summary, or it could be in quotations, in which case it's part of scene. So there's these two there's this balance in a story between scene and summary. So summary is like this. He asked the leaf monster what he's doing there. That's not in quotations, therefore it's considered summary. And then if it's in quotations, it's considered scene. It's part of the scene and it's dialogue, it's happening. And I think we did talk about scene and we did talk about dialogue. We didn't talk about summary, but that would be an example of summary. All right, I'm going to move on to the next one. So we've just got a little bit more time. And here we go. And that's this one. And I'm going to read it. Practice voice number 4. I was in the space between sleep and awaking. The tomatoes were boiling on the stove. My grandma was making her tomato sauce for the winter. It was an immense pot, so the sound was invading the room and my brain. So again, this is an incredible example of a direct voice, right? It's in first person, and it's somebody just telling us a story. And they're telling us a very compelling story because it's very sensory. And so I'm interested in this story. I want to keep on reading this story because it's really like, it's just talking directly to me. And I ask myself this question, why is this character telling me this story? Why now? I'm curious about this story. And that's a very, very good start. For a when a paragraph leaves you with some questions, very good start. So in terms of the voice, how could the writer, do you think, kind of pick up their game a little? Because it's pretty high already. The bar is really high here. Are there things that you think about? Yeah.
It's a little confusing because it's like it goes between I was in the space between sleeping and awaking, and then goes to the other thing, and it's like, wait, so are you in the kitchen or are you just like sleepwalking in the kitchen or something?
Okay. So for the right, so for the writer, they might like maybe they just put in something that they were sleeping in the kitchen, right? There could be like a day bed or something in the kitchen. So then they just put in that detail so that you know that, right? But that's helpful, Brenda, because in terms of locating in setting, you need to know that. But we were talking a little bit about voice now. So this character is talking from the I perspective. Raduca.
I think the punctuation, using more like visually, just looking at it, it's my piece, so that's why I'm gonna go a bit on it, because I feel like it looks boring. For some reason, there's something that it flows in a boring way. Like it doesn't, it's not that musical tone that you said. I mean, it is descriptive, but it doesn't have a rhythm, I feel. It's just sort of.
Right. So that's, thank you so much for saying that, because that is like a major part of voice. You know, when they run, there was some people, this is so cool, but there was some people who had, they came up with some kind of a computer program where they were able to test language. And I think I spoke about this before, but they were able to test language, and they could run like a novel through this thing, and it would say, is this poetry or is this a novel, right? Poetry or prose, poetry or prose. And so they ran, you know, a bunch of novels through and they came out novel, and they ran a bunch of poetry through and it came out poetry. And then they ran the speech of people sitting in a bar through this machine, and it came out poetry. That's so satisfying to me. I can't even tell you how happy that makes me. That when people are telling stories to one another in just a very casual way, it's poetry. So that's what we're aiming for when we write something and we're trying to convey the reality of another human being. We're writing poetry. We're not even writing prose. We're writing poetry. The beautiful rhythms of language that get in there make it real.
So,
okay.
So to me, Goldie, I have a. Is it sort of the same difference? Because I realize now, looking at it, that the focus was, let me really go for the task at hand. Like, you asked for something, so I try to meet that. Versus somebody who doesn't worry about that, and then they sort of flow, like it becomes art. Once you kind of don't worry about certain tasks, then it flows differently out of you.
Well, I just want to say that every single piece of writing that you guys did in the beginning of this class was perfect. It was perfect because it was just your internal speech down on the paper. You didn't have to work at that. It just came out. And that's what you're aiming for when you write. You're aiming for something that it's real and connected. And it's just like this very direct internal voice, the thing that echoes in your head, that internal voice, just put it on the paper. If you can put that down on the paper, you'll do fine. And like most people are like, oh no, I have to do this and I have to do that. No, you just have to make it more simple. Keep on simplifying it and getting that internal voice down on the paper. So like Nabokov's Lolita, I always laugh because Nabokov actually spoke like that. That was his internal voice. It's amazing, right? If you hear him give a lecture or something online, you'll hear he's like this very kind of high diction, remote kind of, and then there's Lolita, and that's his internal voice, right? That's his actual author's voice. That's his real voice. And so I don't think that way inside my head. The way that I write is exactly the way I think inside my head, like that kind of woo, freewheeling kind of business. That's the internal voice coming down. And you can tinker with it a little, but basically, if you have that, then you've got the biggest paintbrush in the writer's drawer is already in your backpack. Okay, so I'm going to move to the next thing because we've just got like a minute or two. So this is a quick question, which I think I'm just going to skip over because I want you to go to this, which is your try it at home section. So I want you to try this. Write an interview between yourself and your main character. Like, so you guys have been writing something, and I want you to interview your main character. I want you to ask them anything you want and set up the interview wherever you want. You could be schmoozing over coffee or arresting them. Have fun with the circumstances of the conversation, but make sure to find out all about your character. And so take that voice that we started with, that voice where you're kind of just giving directions how to do something, or, you know, like your experience, that very direct voice that you started with, and now address it to your character. So in the case of like Raphael, his character Doug, right, the guy with the leaf monster. So if I was going to be addressing him, I'd be like, so hey Doug, I don't get it, like, what's with that leaf monster? Were you scared or what? Right? And if I wrote that down on the page, that would be an interesting interview because it's real. It sounds like a human being interviewing Doug. And then Doug would be back, oh man, it was scary as heck. I didn't know what to do. I was really, and all of a sudden you hear a new voice. You hear Doug's voice. And then once you have that, you can put that down on the page in your story. So I really want you to try this. Give this a whirl. You know, those of you who are doing nonfiction or who are like working on something like that, use you, the actual you, interviewing the character who's with you in that story. So in the case of, let's say, Raduca, you might be interviewing your grandmother, right? And I want to hear the tonal differences between these people. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So again, I want to see this. Send it to me, right? You have my email address now, hopefully all of you. If you don't, just let me know or let Raduca know.
Otherwise, you can't find it on the website.
Right. And I want you to send it to me with enough time so that I can look at it and really think about how to structure the class. I feel like this class, hopefully, is more helpful to you than a different class, right? This class was set up specifically in response to what I saw of your writing. So it's more helpful, hopefully more helpful. All right, did anybody have any questions?
Not for now.
Not for now. All right, anybody?
Oh yes, I actually have a comment. So the summer camp was initially constructed to be 4 weeks, but we can go further. It depends on the instructor and the participants if they want to move past just 4 weeks. But let me know, Goldie, how.
I'm up for going up further than 4.
Hello?
I think it got frozen.
Oh, okay. So basically we can go past 4 weeks, not much more because I need to start on another project, but we can go like six sessions. Please let me know if that works or you guys were. Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I know, it
can
feels
hear
like
you.
everybody's frozen.
Okay, we can think and let's revisit this next week.
Mhm.
Yeah,
All right, well, thank you so much, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone. See you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Raduca.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Bye, Penny.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.